Welcome to the Spy Collection. Here is Anastasios, and in this episode, we'll cover another very recent espionage case from Ukraine that involved a commercially available gadget. This Chinese security camera. Let's unbox it. That's its manual. Some screws to attach it. And it comes with an Echo 27 socket, same socket as those used in Ukraine. And here is the camera. You just screw it in a light bulb socket and then configure it through Wi-Fi from its mobile app. It's simple and quite nice for setting up some simple security monitoring without complex installations. Here is a sample of what it could do, but you get the idea. It's not anything complex or advanced. And with that out of the way, some context for the espionage incident. This is Zaporizhia in Ukrainian, or Zaporozhye in Russian, a strategic city on the banks of the Dnieper River, part of the front line of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. A big portion of the region, or oblast using the local terminology, is already controlled by the Russian military at the time of this publication. The city is also the home of the largest nuclear power plant of the region, which is also the largest nuclear power plant in Europe and among the top 10 largest in the world, thus giving Russia leverage on controlling the energy production. Additionally, it's a major industrial hub for metal, machinery and so on, and its geographic location near Dnieper River make it vital for logistics and control. So you can probably see why Russia would be interested in recruiting spies to conduct covert operations in this area. And that said, let's dive into the case, which we had also shared in our Spy News newsletter from week 42 of last year, 2025. Based on this Ukrainian Security Services, or SBU, press release. The suspect of this case was a 37-year-old Ukrainian man who was mobilized to fight in the Mirohrad front line, but he was mobilized against his will. So he secretly escaped from his military unit and was hiding in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. While hiding in Kyiv, he started looking on how to make money online, specifically in Telegram groups, and this is how the Russian intelligence spotted him and initiated the remote recruitment, again via Telegram. As it's typically done in Humint, his Russian handler gave him some test tasks to see if he could be recruited as an agent or not. Those test tasks are gradually transforming everyday people into spies. Of course, some will fail in the early, not so significant tests, but some might end up becoming really valuable agents. According to SBU, his first test task was to identify and provide the coordinates of checkpoints and Ukrainian armed forces deployment sites in the vicinity of the area that he was living, in Kyiv. After successfully completing that, his Russian handler provided him with some basic training material and a more complex mission assignment. He was tasked to travel back to Zaporizhia, rent an apartment, and purchase commercially available material necessary to build an improvised explosive device, an IED. This is the actual IED that he put together under his handler's instructions inside his rented apartment in Zaporizhia. By the way, you might have heard that some intel officers receive bomb-making training. Well, this is an example why, to be able to guide their agents on how to do those with everyday material. Now, it's not clear how SBU managed to uncover his actions and detain him, but they did detain him in mid-October 2025 in his rent apartment in Zaporizhia. This is a photo from the evidence collection in his apartment. And here's the suspected spy in court. The case is still ongoing, so there is no verdict yet. But how is this related to this camera here? Well, during those searches, SBU found an identical light bulb camera. Here is the photo that SBU released from his house. Basically, the same remotely operated Chinese camera managed through the Tuya smart home app. That, as we saw, it had 360 horizontal and 90-degree vertical rotation, two-way audio channel, infrared LEDs for night mode operation, motion detection, and numerous other capabilities. No groundbreaking spying technology, but here is how it ended up involved in that covert action case. The suspected agent was ordered by his Russian handler to buy this camera and install it in a specific building near the site where the ID was going to be placed. This way, the Russian intelligence would have real-time monitoring of the target site, and according to SBU, apart from that real-time surveillance, this would allow the Russian intelligence officers to remotely record the consequences of the ID attack, both to assess its effectiveness, but also to potentially use the material in future psychological operations. So the plan was to have this agent placing the ID there after the camera was installed and then leave the city. Then Russian intelligence could remotely monitor and detonate it at will, since the ID was equipped with a mobile phone trigger device. With inexpensive, commercially available technology providing capabilities like this, it's no surprise that spy agencies take advantage of that. Why introduce all the risk that some sensitive, expensive classified tech brings to covert operation when you could achieve the same with something that anyone could purchase almost anywhere in the world? To the best of our knowledge, this also marks the first incident of a real-world, nation-state spy case that involved this particular gadget. And apart from this, that case also reveals some of the modern tradecraft that Russian intel services have been using extensively the last few years. From the remote spotting, assessing, recruiting, and handling of agents, to the use of IEDs operated and detonated remotely in order to protect their agents, and of course, using devices like this for the so-called video traps that we covered extensively in our Tradecraft Sunday episode 16. What do you think about all that tradecraft? And how do you think that Ukraine's SBU was able to catch this agent before completing his mission? Let us know what you think. The same methodology doesn't only apply to active war zones, but also in peacetime. And that's why the term hybrid warfare is being used so regularly recently, since conducting an operation like this during peacetime would be considered by most nation-states as an act of hybrid warfare. And it's also why we say that nothing is as it seems.